Alrighty, so welcome to Desert Island Picks with today's guest, who is the founder of Fundamental and indeed the inventor of not only Greedy Granny and Windy Knickers, but also many other inventions which we'll hear more about today. It's Gary Pyper. Gary, how are you?
I'm okay, thanks, Deej. Yeah, I'm very good.
So the format of this is that, as with the TV show Desert Island Discs, which we're just completely ripping off, here, I imagine you to be marooned on a desert island with your pick of certain toys or games. And I invite people to look back and say, well, if I was stuck with one game for the rest of my days, this is the one toy or game with which I would be stuck. And actually, I suppose that's a very good place to start, would be your a toy or game from your childhood that you would think to yourself, well, when I look back, this was the one, this was Aces.
I think there's a lot of toys. I mean, I was quite lucky, really. I think I did get a lot of, I suppose I was growing up at that time where all those TV and film license toys were starting to happen. So I quite often lusted for toys, even if I hadn't seen the film, because I was too young. I remember wanting, wanting a Millennium Falcon, but not knowing what it was. And in the end, I got an AT-AT, which again, didn't know what it was. I just thought it was a big dog, like a big plastic dog. But I'd heard everyone talking about it at school. And then when I got it, I was really disappointed because I didn't get it at all. I didn't know what it was or what part of the film it was. And I had some great toys, really. I mean, there's ones like Lego, that everyone says, oh, I love Lego. And you go, yeah, of course you did. But, I think we had, our Saturday mornings were going to jumble sales, or I don't know. I mean, obviously, a lot of people watching this won't know what a jumble sale is. It's like a swap meet, but it's not curated in any way now, like boot sales or things are. It's basically old lady,
like a giant yard sale.
Yeah, it's in the church hall, and people will go and they're just empty trash bags full of clothes and junk. And then, my mum every Saturday morning would go, and I'd rummage through and find bits of Lego and bits of things to take home and add to my Lego collection. It was, and it's the only time I got to have a can of Coke as well. That was a big point, a can of Coke and a packet of Skips on a Saturday morning. But I think it was that hunting around, and I had a big box of Lego. That was quite exciting. But the real toy, it's a bit of a left field one that really changed everything for me, was my Star Wars tent. And again, I don't know. I don't even know if it was part of Star Wars, but I remember wanting this Millennium Falcon one year, and I think it was too expensive. I remember in the Argos catalogue, it was a fortune. So Dad just travelled around the country. Who knows where he got it from, but he got this really, really toxic smelling silver PVC space tent. He told me it was a Star Wars tent, but I've looked.
This is falling apart. This is falling apart.
I've looked through every old Argos catalogue trying to buy one, and I can't find it. So I'm not sure what it was. But to me, it was a Star Wars tent, right. And it smelt like a lilo, and it was silver. But inside, it was absolutely clad with tiny buttons and knobs and drawings and illustrations of little dials and little things, and I remember just sitting in it for days upon days. I used to sleep in it.
Oh, wow.
And just stare at, just play with all the little, go in different places, in the universe, in my tent.
But it doesn't ring a bell as a Star Wars tent. It doesn't ring a bell with me, a tent like that. But you're saying your dad bought. What did your dad do? What was he into?
My dad was totally opposite to me. My dad was a detective.
Right. Oh my God. I wonder what this tent actually was. It was it's like a forensic tent that he's brought home.
Yeah, big white.
Draw dials on. They are, son. Star Wars, that.
Yeah. But he did used to drive around lots of odd, weird places and meet lots of odd people. So it may well have fallen off the back of a lorry somewhere. But to me it was just the best thing in the world.
And do you still have that? Is that something that's in a loft somewhere, or did it get?
No, I don't think it was. I mean, I seem to remember keeping everything, and then this probably happens to a lot of kids. Go off to university, come home for the first week, and my bedroom had been decorated, and all my stuff was gone. All my rave posters had disappeared, and it was now flowery.
And the toxic smelling poisonous tent.
I imagine the tent got lost in that clear out.
Well, that sounds like one of those sort of gateway entertainments, which actually I think is quite common with inventors, particularly when it's sometimes you get people saying a very specific thing. Other times it's usually a gateway where it's a thing where yes, it was a tent and it had dials on, but it required a huge portion of the imagination, like Lego does to some extent. To well, we've got this toy, yes, but you know, it could have been a box and we would have been happy with the box. But is that your experience as a child? Were you the kind of kid that was taking toys apart and rebuilding them, or were you inquisitive like that?
I was a nightmare. I mean, I really was. I had no real knowledge.
That is the word I was looking for. Thank you, Gary. That's exactly the word I was looking for.
I had no order at all, so I wouldn't. I'd have no interest in putting things back together. It was just chaos. Everything was chaos. I'd take everything apart. I would destroy things. I would just paint on my bedroom walls. I would make bombs in the garage. I would just, you know, like I would literally just work out ways to which I could make, you know, tennis ball cap bombs that we'd go and blow up at the park. I was absolutely chaotic. And my parents, bless them, I don't think they knew what to do with me. They just let me go. We'd go to me and my best mate's favourite weekend pastime was going to the dump. It was like the tip, you know, the refuse tip. And we'd buy random things. You know, we once bought we rescued a shopping trolley and a surfboard. And we managed to tether them together into some sort of kind of rideable surfboard on wheels. I mean, it really was. It was, they must have
played with that in the street. You were just...
Yeah. And then I bought we bought a trash Sinclair C5 electric vehicle, you know, the 3-wheeler.
Yes.
Yeah, we bought one of them, got one of them from the dump and raced it at 12 years old, raced it around the high street, being told to go home.
Yeah. My God, a Sinclair C5. This is taking me back. Christ, that was like properly, that was celebrated as the greatest, most cutting edge technology, and then it was gone. I don't know what happened to that, but that's properly old school.
Yeah.
Interesting. Gosh, I'm trying to work out your age. I think that beard is quite deceptive on you, Gary. Yeah. Anyway, so the next question I suppose was going to be, you mentioned some of your family there, and it called to mind the idea that if you were away on this desert island, perhaps you would want somebody with you. So one of the questions I don't always ask, but I'm inclined to think it's quite important. If you could have somebody from all of history, and when I say whether they're living or dead, I mean, if you wish for them, that they are still alive. You don't. So I'd like somebody dead, and they're dead next to you. It's somebody that's alive. So if you could have anybody living or dead from all time as a person to be with on the desert island, with whom would you spend that time?
Well, it's a bit like one of those dinner party questions, isn't it? You know, if you had a dinner party, who would be? And it's always Stephen Fry, Gandhi, and I don't know, someone, Beethoven or someone. The problem I have with any of that is I don't know any of them. I mean, they could be awful, couldn't they? I mean, you could.
Yeah, say, I imagine Beethoven is a nightmare.
Imagine getting Beethoven, and then so I think there could be so many interesting people. But I'm going to go for someone that I know, and again, it's not a crowd pleaser, but it's my granddad, in quite a sentimental way. But my granddad was an exceptionally childish man. He was like, even into his 80s and 90s, he was still like a child. He took nothing seriously. Although he was actually a very serious person, but he was playful with everything he did. And it was like, you know, he taught me woodwork, you know, he taught me to make things. He taught me naughty jokes. We'd go dumpster hunting, like skip jumping, you know, we'd go and find stuff in dumpsters. And it was just like an explorer, you know, he just could climb trees and fall out of trees and continually be messing around. And he was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And so I think, you know, I know him, and I think I could bear 50 years of, I mean, obviously theoretically, because he was 90. He was 90 then.
And still going.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, I think
But
that.
that sounds like that's quite an interesting choice, and I agree with you. It's all too easy to pick somebody that you think, well, Stephen Fry would be a fascinating conversationalist, but actually, there's no guarantee, is there? That it's all for show. He could be a right sour bugger. You just don't know. But your granddad sounds quite remarkable in that respect. And do you think that his personality traits? It sounds like he would have been quite a playful, curious person. Do you think that rubbed off in you in some way?
I think it did. He was quite a storyteller. I mean, you'd never know if he was telling the truth or everything he said was, just fantastical. He'd tell these ridiculous stories that, there's elements of truth in, I think. And I just like the fact that it didn't really matter, as long as he was entertaining, and he was always very daring. He was always very risky, he just, he'd go to, when we'd go out, he'd make a habit of wearing his slippers just to embarrass me, just literally things like that, confuse him. So I definitely think that child. But as I say, there's quite a few people in the toy industry. Met quite a few over the years. They've got that childish glint in their eye. There's something like a little kid still in there, and I think that's very hard to maintain. I find it very difficult. I still have to kind of really try and remember what it's like to be in that Star Wars tent, because it disappears. You get real world problems going on. But there are a few people I've met along the way. In my first job, when I used to work in a giftware company, there was a wonderful man called Keith Siegel. And Keith, he must have been in his 70s then, I suppose, but he would just skip down the corridor singing songs, and he'd come in and he'd have this kind of like glint in his eye, like a 6-year-old little boy, and I remember it. And there's been quite a few people I've met in the toy industry that are like that.
But would you say that? Would you say that? You make it sound like perhaps that you're not. But I get the sense that you would have a mischievous streak about you.
I try. I try and make. I mean, maybe it's a fallback. Perhaps I'm over. I try and make fun of everything. But I just think it's hard. It's hard to work stuff out. But if you can make people laugh and have fun, and be kind, it's not a lot else to really do. So I try.
Yeah. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm psychotherapy or anything like that. I'm not analysing you deeply. I see you've got a 6 foot tall pair of sunshades next to you, so I'm not. There's no great insight on my part. You'll strike me as the kind of man. It's not. It's pretty much there. Yeah. Which you were telling me earlier, you got those from a closing down props warehouse.
Yeah. A late night eBay purchase. It was that. It was that and a dinosaur, an 8-foot fiberglass dinosaur, and a few other things.
Glass dinosaur. Yeah, I still get that sense then that what you did as a kid when you were dumpster rummaging and going down the tip and buying stuff, which is where I got this shirt, by the way. Nice reject. I'll have that. And the giant shades. So there's that sort of sense of curiosity about objects and exploration to some extent.
Yeah, especially about objects. I always say I'm not hugely into games. I'm not hugely into toys, but I'm just into objects and how people interact with them, how they make them feel.
So did you just say you're not into toys and you're not hugely into games?
I'm not. I love toys and I love games and I love playing with, but I'm a grown up now, so I don't play with toys and I don't really play that many games, but I'm fascinated in the way that objects, especially toys and games, can be the catalyst for memories and social experience. Because there's not really anything, like songs, smells, literature, some literature, toys are the things that really can really shape people, and totally change the way they think about things. And I'm fascinated to see how objects influence people.
Interesting. I don't know if there's many toy and game inventors that would have said that. That intrigues me that you sort of, well, I don't play so much, because I'm an adult. Why would I? But I mean, it has to be absolutely the case. I think if you were anything other, if you get this a lot when we use the word childish and childlike earlier, but I suspect if an inventor was truly like a child all the time, they'd never get anything done. So there has to be a balance there.
I think that, as in doesn't stop being having a curiosity about everything, about the whole nature of the way we think and the way we interact with everything. Toys are just the physical embodiment of that. I think the way that the obvious embodiment of that. But I think everything's can be playful.
Yeah. Interesting. And by the way, I meant to ask earlier on.
It's all gone a bit deep, Deej.
Well, this is the way I tend to go. You'll be in tears by the end of the session. you'll be begging for a break. I meant to ask earlier, several times you've said "our," which creates in my head at least the impression that there is at least one other person that has some sort of day-to-day input there. Who is this other person who you're working with?
Well, so my business partner Toby, who is he's a mechanical genius. He's just remarkable, and we're very good friends, and we've worked together for 20 years, I suppose. So, but also when I say we, I mean my family. I work with my wife. She works full time in the business, and my kids are here all the time. And I don't really even, create a boundary around the family. We have their friends here. We have, our friends here. We have. It's just part. It's just like, it's not a job. It's just that.
It sounded like you're going to say hell. It's just awful.
I've just sent 4 of them downstairs to the cafe downstairs to have ice cream. I bribed them to get them out of the way so I could have.
Oh dear. Oh, I'm glad I asked. You should warn me away from that. So then I suppose the next question would be, looking back on all of the things that you have worked on, what's Toby's surname, by the way? I didn't.
Kinsey.
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 Maybe Bill, we should eye him up for a chat. Anyway, I was going to ask you, so of all the toys and games that you have worked on, then I'm guessing there is one, there usually is, that people look back and say, well, I'm quite proud of that. This is the one that if I were to be stuck on a desert island with, it's this. I'm gonna say this one. Which is the one toy or game or idea that you it may not have to be a toy or game, could be something else. I know you've done children's books as well. So what's the one thing you would take on that island with you?
I want, thinking about being totally objective about this being on the island.
Yes.
We've just done a game called You're on Mute, and it contains a big magnifying glass. So I was thinking, well, in a practical sense, that'd be very useful for starting fires. But it's not gonna.
It's a very pragmatic approach.
Yeah, I took this quite seriously, and. But then I was thinking, this island could be quite dangerous at night. When it gets dark, I don't know where the island is. It could be inhabited by wolves, for instance. So we do a lot of baby items, which I've done for many years, particularly one called the Rocket, which is a vibrating baby rocker, which is you plug it onto the side of a buggy, and it basically rocks your baby to sleep. But we've also done an item called Zed, and Zed uses motors to replicate the vibrations of a motor engine.
All right.
It's quite neat, but it's got a technical little thingy, but it has a night light on. So I thought, well, this little thing I could put next to me to soothe me at night. That'd be nice. And then at night, the light would come on and prevent me from being eaten by bears. Which although of all the I'm very proud of a lot of games and the toys I've made, but I think in a practical sense, if I'm going to be on this island until the batteries run out on the nightlight, I'm good to go.
That's a good point, actually. I wouldn't have thought of the batteries. Actually, now that you mention it, the magnifying glass, when you light the fire, you need the fire at night, don't you?
Yeah.
Well,
in that case, I'm taking, I don't know.
You're taking those sunshades. I'm going out laughing.
I don't know.
No, but I appreciate that. And when you say, I mean, because that's an interesting idea. It produces white noise, but by vibrating to sound like an engine. Is that what this then does?
Yeah. So it doesn't actually make noise. It sits on a mattress, and it has a combination of patented motor technology, which basically vibrates a mattress so it feels like a car.
Cool.
So yeah, so when you put your baby in, you know that thing when you turn the car off and they wake up immediately. It prevents that from happening. So,
yeah. Well, mercifully, I don't, and hopefully, I never will know that. It sounds like an atrocious feeling, but I understand that those of us foolish enough to have children absolutely will know what you're talking about there. So I can't think of anything worse. Interesting. And a nightlight as well. That sounds fantastic. That's available now.
Yes, yeah, that's in where is it? Yeah, everywhere. John Lewis, Jojo, Mama, Baby, all those places. Yeah.
Interesting.
The Z Rocket, yeah. So
give it a good plug. And I suppose the next question then would be similarly, because, and I actually think this is very difficult. I wouldn't like to be asked these questions. If you were to look at the rest of the industry, other people's ideas, to me this is monstrously difficult because you've got all time and all inventions in toys and games. It's a preposterous question. I don't know why we're doing this, Bill. It's a terrible idea. But pushing on, we've got to do another 5 minutes. If you looked at everybody else's ideas in toys and games and said, this is the one idea, I wish I'd come up with that. It's so brilliant. Or indeed, this would get me through the rest of this desert island stay. What would that be?
Well, I definitely know what my favorite inventions are that other people have invented, but whether they equate to, I think the most elegant, there's the most elegant games I think exist. The one's Jenga.
Oh yeah.
I think it's just so pure. And the other one, which doesn't sound as pure, but Twister. I think Twister, to create that much fun with just one sheet of plastic is amazing. But what good are they going to be on a desert island? Not an awful lot. So thinking literally again, I know from experience, and my wife will kill me for saying this, but we had our honeymoon on a desert island, 6 huts in the middle of the sea. Oh, that went out of my mind. The only thing near us at all, you could go on a day trip to a pilchard factory. That was it. So
where the hell is this? It sounds awful.
It was you land in the Maldives and you end up on a desert. And I'd also repeatedly watched the same hotel on YouTube during the tsunami. So I was dreaming of disaster. So the only thing that saved me was a pack of I've been to the Maldives colouring pencils from the beach hut gift shop. So I would pick, and again, there is a flaw to this, but I'd pick the colouring pencil by Johann Sebastian Stedler. He invented the colouring pencil.
Wow, okay.
But my kids, when I told my kids what I chose, and they went, "Dad, that's not a toy." And I was like, "Oh, no, maybe it's not."
Well, no, I suppose it's not. I haven't really given it any thought. No, I suppose it's not. But it talks to our earlier conversation, I suppose, about the gateway to play. It's not a toy or a game, but it is, and maybe this is the underlying thread with everything we've discussed. It allows you to have fun, which is more important than the object itself. It's an object that lets you engage somehow, yeah. which is all the toy does. So I suppose it doesn't really matter that it's not a toy.
No, but they suggested perhaps I should pick an Etch-a-Sketch instead, an endless. But then I could only draw straight line palm trees.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's. I'm not sure. Yeah. Oh well, you know what? We should. The whole thing's been very ill thought through. We should have set the rules up. We're only doing this because we can't really do Room 101 on this format. It's comeback live events is it's just a picture of that now.
But no, it would be, from first-hand experience on a desert island, it would be colouring pencils.
And you're right. The island in the Maldives where the only attraction is a pilchards factory. That sounds. What the hell? I mean, why did you go there for your honeymoon? Unless it was your wife's idea, brilliant choice, remarkable taste, well done. I don't want to get on the wrong side of anybody.
It was very pretty. Yeah. That was.
Oh dear. Let's tell her that the recording went wrong, and that way nobody gets to watch this, and nobody knows. Nobody knows what you said. Oh dear. Well, now the final question, which normally, Gary, is purely academic because it relates to what you would like to have said about you as an epitaph after death. Given what you've just said about your honeymoon, though, this might need urgently ushering in. This may become a very topical, very topical point.
Could well be. Well, I reckon I would do some sort of. As a kid, I used to love drawing treasure maps, very, very complicated treasure maps. So maybe to round it all up, maybe I'd do a message in a bottle. You know, perhaps I would be, you know, use the last of my colouring pencils. The last shavings of my colouring pencils to create an elaborate treasure map, which would lead any hopeful treasure hunter back to me, mummified in a sun-bleached Star Wars tent.
With the toxic fumes.
With no reward. It's all about the journey.
Oh, that's quite profound.
There you go.
Which is actually, because that's how it feels. The whole thing's been about the journey. You can have all the toys in the world, but unless you engage with them, and funny you should say about the AT-AT walker, I did have that, and I did know what it was, and that was the best gift I think I ever got as a child.
Yeah.
I was just moved to tears by it. I thought it was just terrific. But it certainly wasn't the most expensive present that we ever got, but it was the one that allowed me to most easily access a universe, and I think that's probably what it's all about for you, Gary. From the sounds of it, it certainly is what it's all about for me. So very good. I've enjoyed this conversation. I said to you earlier, it feels like a couple of years since we tied in. I can't understand it, but of course it's a couple of years.
Yep.
Not being allowed out of the house. It's ridiculous. So all it remains for me to do is say, Gary Pyper, this has been a pleasure. And I hope one day you'll come back and do Room 101 with us at a live event. If you will.
I definitely will.
Brilliant. Gary, thank you for your time. Thank you.
Deej. Thanks a lot.